We are live. I am Father James, and this is the Barely Protestant YouTube channel. And I have with me today a special guest. His name is Andrew Lowen. Yeah, that's how you pronounce the last name, right?
That is right. That's right.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. And those of you who may or may not know, I'm a huge board gamer. I love board games. And I'm not talking about Monopoly, although that was one of the ones I loved growing up. But I've got literally over almost 24 board games right now. It's a bad habit of mine. It's an addiction. But I discovered this board game that is called Deliverance, and it caught my eye, and I was like, oh, Christian board game. And there are a few out there. And I figured I'd try it out and see if I like it or not. I played a game, and I played it with Andrew, and I really enjoy it. It's actually a legitimately good board game. And so we're going to find out a little bit about how it came about, a little bit about the background of its designer. And so we'll start off. So how are you doing, Andrew?
I am awesome and super excited to be here. I have to share this with my peeps. I found a live video live right now on the Barely Protestant YouTube channel. Yep. Check it out, everyone.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to send you that link.
No, I think it's awesome. I love that we're live. Right. It's super fun. Yes. What was the question?
No. Okay. Yeah. Well, we can start off. I just did a "How are you doing?" which is a very generic,
very well
boring question. But yeah. So tell us how you
get the more interesting answer.
Yeah. Start from the beginning with sort of just who you are and like what got you into board games or sort of your interests with and beyond that.
Yeah. So I am a lifelong nerd. I grew up playing video games. I started off with Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo. My dad, when I was 3 years old, my dad was playing Legend of Zelda, and I would watch, and it was my earliest memory of playing games. And as I grew up, we played Stratego and other games like that, Risk, and we played some Monopoly, and which I don't think to this day, I don't think I've ever finished a Monopoly game. And then and then I got into RPGs on the Super Nintendo. Secret of Mana, Chrono Trigger, led into Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy Tactics, and then some other really big ones.
I have to ask, did you play Earthbound on the SNES?
I never did. I never played Earthbound. It was actually, for whatever reason, it just didn't appeal to me at the time. I don't think I had ever seen a commercial for it. I remember it being at the time, it was Electronics Boutique, which is now GameStop.
Yeah.
But I remember choosing either Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy Tactics or something like that at the time. So I've never played it.
Oh, you need to play it. That was my first RPG, actually. Earthbound. My dad was a youth pastor at the time, and one of the teens was sort of a video game addict. So he let us borrow his SNES for a few months because he's like, I don't want to be playing it because I'm addicted to it. So one of the games he had was Earthbound. And so my first experience of an RPG was through Earthbound. And that got me falling in love with RPGs. It's awesome. One of the craziest RPGs. I would highly recommend getting the classic SNES because it's got that game in there. Anyway, sorry, cool. Go ahead. So you went to RPGs and...
Yeah, so eventually I discovered that there's at that time, console gaming was a single player experience, but then I got into PC gaming. I remember we had like a Pentium 1 processor, a 120 megahertz processor, and it was like, whoa, that's fast. I ended up getting I played Command and Conquer Red Alert, I played StarCraft, and got into games like that. And then I think I must have played the Diablo 1 shareware. I remember we had a 3D card. It was called a 3D card at the time. And it came with a CD-ROM full of like the first level of a bunch of games, Yeah. And I played Diablo. It must have been 100 times. I killed the butcher like 100 times. And I killed every enemy inside the entire game before I got the butcher. It was just so addictive. And I became a Blizzard fan at that time.
Nice.
I ended up playing, Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, World of Warcraft. I put easily 30,000 hours into World of Warcraft. And that's not an exaggeration at any, I think it was like almost 1,000 days played. Collectively, you can do /played and see how long your WoW character is. It was over 1,000 days that I last checked. And that was over a 10-year period. So I invested about a third of my life into World of Warcraft, at like literal third of my life. I can't believe it. And then I actually became a professional gamer. I played Hearthstone. And I became a pro gamer with Hearthstone. I played Magic the Gathering. I actually got really into Pokemon. Where I got into like hobby level card games and stuff was Pokemon at 14 years old. We went to tournaments at our local game store and that kind of thing. And then I got into Magic. All my friends thought that was stupid or like satanic, and
yes.
So yeah. Which
did you ever play? Did you ever play Duel Monsters or Yu-Gi-Oh?
I did play Yu-Gi-Oh. Played Yu-Gi-Oh pretty hard. Yeah. So
So I had Pokemon, and my dad was very strict on that sort of stuff until he was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this stuff is collectible," and he loves like collectible stuff. So he like bought a whole bunch of cards for us, and we had to keep like our cards pristine, like certain ones, like my Charizard, my first edition Machamp. And I still have those cards to this day, and I've looked them up, and they're like worth hundreds of dollars each. For something.
We have a first edition Charizard in my parents' house somewhere, and we don't know where it is. My sister got it when she was like 8. It was like a $300 card.
I have a few first editions from way back in the day, but I don't have a first edition Charizard, but I still have that Charizard. And then a bunch of others like Mewtwo and things like movie Mewtwo as well as the regular Mewtwo.
Yeah, we have. I have like 4 movie Mewtwo's and a bunch of other. I used to have a bunch of other stuff I collected.
I had also got the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff like right away, and then my mom saw the cards and she saw Dark Magician, and I had to throw them away.
Yeah, I learned quick to hide the cards from my parents. Just don't let them see it. Yeah. They were like, "Oh my goodness, they're like bad cards here," and I'm like, "You didn't see the worst cards." Like there's literally a card called Demonic Consultation that my parents never knew about.
Is that magic?
And, and it was good too. It was like, why do they make good cards with like the worst possible name you could possibly? It's like you're not. I know you're not trying to make the card game for Christians or whatever, but like, are you trying to be as like gnarly as you can? It's like the 90s and your Demonic Consultation. Search your deck for any card you want, put it in your hand. It's like that's really good, but I have to play with a card called that. So it's stupid.
Well, didn't they have like a KKK one also or something? They had to get rid of recently.
That's funny. I actually haven't played. So the last time I played Magic, every once in a while I jump into a draft of the game. So the thing is about Magic. So as a game designer, Magic is one of the most it's one of the greatest case studies of games. Not necessarily balanced. It's incredibly imbalanced in some ways, but that's part of the magic of the game is that it is extremely fun, extremely replayable. You have highs and lows. You get, you're like, wow, it worked, and then I got mana screwed or whatever, and there's this I keep using that word. It seems redundant, but there's this certain thing about that game. But it's an excellent case study for a designer that wants to learn how to technically write something that can only be interpreted in one way. This is like Fireball, deal X damage to target creature or player. There's only one way to interpret that card. You pay X mana, deal X damage. So if I paid 5 mana, I'd deal 5 damage. And a lot of the time, game designers will create board games that give instructions. It's like, draw 2 cards, pick one. It's like, well, there are a lot of different ways. Or draw 2 cards and then equip one. It's like, all right, what does equip mean? I have to look it up in the rule book, or draw 2 cards. All right, I drew 2, but do I equip one? But do I keep the other one? What do I do with the other one? It didn't tell me. And there are those little. You think that they're so stupid, and but there are ways to say you can do a certain thing and then have 0 questions afterward. And Magic the Gathering is the best case study that you can find on how to write proper card text. So anyway, I played that for like 8 years, and I don't play it anymore, but
Yeah. That's one that I never got into. I had a college roommate that tried to get me into it, but it was all right. It just I don't know. It wasn't the same as like Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon to me. My favorite card game actually though is the old Decipher '90s Star Wars card game.
Yeah, my
I don't
buddy
know if you
was
ever
really
played
into
it.
that. Yeah, actually,
Oh, yeah.
So I had a friend, still my best friend to this day. He loves Star Wars, and he had this deck with droid destroyers. I don't know,
Okay.
it's so hard to remember, but he had like 20 of them in his deck, and that was like all he would use. And I remember it being an interesting experience. I never really got into it other than just playing over at his house, but I thought that was a pretty intelligent game at the time.
It's an amazing game. Like your mana basically is like your actual deck, and like you have to discard cards. So it's similar somewhat to Yu-Gi-Oh, but I think Yu-Gi-Oh is a bit too fast. This one's a much more slow, thought out game. Anyway, don't know about card games. We both love card games.
Yeah.
So what got you to jump from like I guess it's not a huge leap, but going from like card games to sort of like the past 15, 20 years, there's been a huge like explosion of board games.
Yeah.
So what got you with that?
So I actually, so as I mentioned, I became a professional Hearthstone player. And when I say professional, I was kind of working a business, from my main job, I would sell websites. So I was actually in business for myself. I've run a digital marketing agency for just over 10 years. I actually have done a bunch of board game Kickstarters. We can always talk about that. I do a ton of board game. I market a lot of board games, including like Star Trek, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, a lot of really cool IPs, Conan, and anyway. But yeah, so so Hearthstone was like I would teach people for $100 an hour how to hit Legend, which is like the top.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wrote I wrote an article called "Welcome to Hearthstone, You Suck." And it was a parody of this old article for a game called Dota, if you're familiar. And there was this article that was written. It was excellent. It was called "Welcome to Dota, You Suck." And because everyone just gets angry and tilts in that game and yells at each other and whatnot. It's a very toxic community. And I wrote an article called "Welcome to Hearthstone, You Suck." And everyone is always frustrated with their performance in Hearthstone. Oh, why can't I get better? I can't get past rank 5 or whatever. And my article was the foundation of how you get better. It's like, just recognize that you're bad at this game. To everyone else that's better than you, you're bad. You suck. But, and then to everyone that you're better than, they suck. Right. And so that was the premise of the article. And it generated hundreds of thousands of views and got me a lot of press and a lot of popularity. I wrote for a website called ihearthyou.com. And
you say thousands of views, right?
Hundreds of thousands.
Oh, hundreds of thousands. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it became the most popular search for things on Google, like, why do I suck at Hearthstone? And, it's how to get better at Hearthstone. That was my article. So I wrote a bunch of articles and people wanted me to teach them. I would watch people, I would watch their play, and then I would tell them, are you sure you want to do this? You have another option, and, so on and so forth. $100 an hour. It's really cool. And it helped pay the bills while I was trying to start my own business, So there came a point, actually, in World of Warcraft, I was a guild leader. So I led a guild of people who we were very, very good. We were at top tier. If people understand, we had like 13 field marshals or above in our guild. So people would have to play for like 18 hours a day, 6 months straight to hit this rank in PvP, and had like 13 of those or above. And then, we just played so hard. And I had my main arena partner actually went and won the first tournament at BlizzCon. And then the next BlizzCon, which was a year or 2 years later, my other arena partner took third place at BlizzCon, and they won $100,000 for winning the tournament, and it was cool. It's like, oh, I know all these people, and I'm just nobody, So I have friends that have over 500,000 followers on Twitch. They were my teammates, and we would practice together. We practiced Hearthstone and other things, and so anyway, it's fun. But then I have 5 children going on 6 right now.
Oh, praise God. Awesome.
Yeah, and so around child number 2, that was in 2015, I decided, maybe about 10 months after, so I had my child in January 2015, second baby, and then October 2015, I decided to quit playing video games cold turkey.
Oh wow.
That was just like boom, all of a sudden nothing. We were playing Elder Scrolls Online at the time, and it was just I just felt like God was kind of calling me away from playing video games. And being a lifelong nerd, I had to fill the gap somehow. So we started reading books out loud. I read like the Wheel of Time series, Lord of the Rings, all sorts of other stuff out loud. I'm sure you read books, you read the Bible, you read lots of fantasy books. You've got some stuff on the back there, right? And
currently reading Eucharistic Theology of Pusey and Lyriel of the Old Kingdom series, Garth Nix. I don't know if you know that series.
That's awesome. I do not, but I'll tell you what.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's that sounds awesome. But if you read that out loud, you would go through it about 1/10 the speed, like you normally do, right? It took so much mental energy to do that. But my wife and I, we're nerds together. We play things together. And so we're trying to find things to do that we both enjoy that kind of scratch that fantasy itch. And then I think one day we just so happened to run into somebody that suggested, I thought it was either Catan or Pandemic. One of those two. And so I think we played Pandemic, and we played it like 3 or 4 times. We were like, wow, I didn't know cooperative was a thing. And we looked for other games that were really like highly touted, and we got Catan. We must have played Catan like 100 times, just a ton. And then that's where this collection got started. This shelf behind me is not the only shelf of games that I have, but it's the one on display, I guess. So yeah. So I just started collecting board games, playing them. I just got the Call to Adventure, the Stormlight Archive. We just finished the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, but the first 4 books, and it was really fun. But we got the board game. It's like we have to play this game now. But that's where that came from. So I just started playing board games every week. There was a stint that I skipped over where I met my wife playing poker. I learned how to play poker.
Nice.
I ran poker tournaments every weekend at my house for 2 years straight. And, 50 people that were friends for $5, buy into the tournament, have fun. So that's kind of where it came from. I just became a huge, huge advocate for board games because I loved how I got to, not only did I get to play in a fantasy, leave reality and play in this fantasy world, but I got to do it with all my friends. And when I packed them up, it was over. It wasn't like, like World of Warcraft. It's like, oh, well, people are continually grinding and they're getting better gear than me.
Yeah.
And if I don't keep up, then I'm totally owned. It's board games are, hey, go at your own pace. If you're playing a game like Dungeon Crawl, like Gloomhaven, you might have 90 sessions that you'll play that game, but you get to play them at your own pace, right?
Yeah.
And there's no rush, which is really important for me now that I have, again, going on 6 children. It's definitely, you have to plan the times that you want to game. But
no, I agree. Actually, let me say something about that because so when online gaming started happening, like early 2000s or so, I was playing at my friend's house because we didn't have internet. I was playing Star Wars Galaxy or Galaxies, Halo at my friend's house and all that sort of stuff, and other games like that. And I started realizing very quickly that you've got to spend a lot of hours playing if you want to be even slightly competitive.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always tended, when it comes to video games, to be more single player, because for me, when I'm playing a video game, it's largely for the story.
Yep.
So, like some of my favorite
games. That's how I started with RPGs.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Mass Effect for me is one of my favorites. Legend of Zelda. Well, Halo, but I always played the single player because just the story was much more interesting. Yep. But with board games, I find that I can be much better and like I can become a more, not professional is not the right, but
the skills
more competitive.
Translate from one to another, right? Like
exactly
the critical deduction and reasoning and math and other things like that. It's like universal from one game to another.
Yeah. Whereas it's a lot more hand-eye coordination. Yeah. So So we'll get into Deliverance in a second, but I can tell I see the trend right now, and spoilers right now, but Deliverance is a cooperative game.
Yes.
And
yes.
I can see that that you're going that way because in part it seems to be that's what got you into board games was the cooperative style games. I love cooperative. I also love the more like big strategic type ones. So like I'm playing Twilight Imperium right now.
That's the first one I thought of.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I love it. I need to play Eclipse, the second edition, because I haven't played actually either edition yet, but I've been told that Eclipse second edition is even better than Twilight Imperium 4. I don't know.
That it's like shorter too.
Yeah, short. Well, that makes it worse for me then, because like if you're gonna play a big box game, you need to play it for like 5 days, you know?
Yep.
But like, yeah, I also love a cooperative. Now, one of my favorite cooperatives, it's kind of cooperative, is Fury of Dracula, where you actually have one player playing as Dracula, and then you have the others playing cooperatively to get him. So yeah, we've got that. So what got you to? Let's first start with this then. What got you to decide like I need to make a board game?
So well, I am always thinking and tinkering and that kind of thing. I can't just play. I can't just be a fan of something. I have to I have to be the best at a thing. I don't know why. It's just the way God made me, I guess. And so I was thinking, so this, I just kept getting frustrated because I love all types of fantasies. You know, I read all the Harry Potters and I watched all the movies and I really liked those. I loved, you know, some like darker fantasy stuff like Constantine is a great example.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I don't really have a problem with, you know, myself. You know how the Bible says, let each person be fully convinced in their own mind about what is okay for them, right? You know, and I just felt like, you know, World of Warcraft, you've got like witch doctors and you've got voodoo.
Well, Diablo too, you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, you killed the devil. It's like, dude, I just killed the devil. And you know, but anyway, it's just one of those things that I can put it in a box where it's like, I'm in this, what they call the concept of the magic circle. It's like we are, you know, you. Well,
do you mind real quick? Sorry.
Yeah.
Just give us an overview of Deliverance, because I know what it is. Obviously, you know, but some people might not know. So give us an overview of what it's about and how it ties into this whole idea of like the whole sort of darker fantasy stuff.
Yeah. So Deliverance is what I call, the simplest way I can describe it is a Christian fantasy dungeon crawler. And so it's you play as elite angels in the army of heaven. You come down to a modern day town, little backwoodsy town called Fallbrook in Southern California that is rife with demonic activity. And you have to figure out why the demons are there. And you have to and actually you suspect that there's one of your former fallen allies, the one of the mighty fallen princes, is leading the armies of darkness from the shadows of this little town. And it is your mission to root out that dark lord and slay them, send them to the abyss to await their final judgment. And so it's a game of angels, demons, and the saints caught between. So you not only in your missions to figure out what's going on and to bring this fallen prince to justice, you also have these saints that are on the board that act kind of as I don't know, like well, they're like objectives on the board where they can be oppressed and they can be protected. So you can act kind of as their guardian angel and protect them. The demons will seek to oppress them. And what happens is in this town, there's this, so you're fighting in tactical combat on a board, but at the same time, you are dealing with the fallout and the evils of the human realm that are manifesting in the spiritual realm as darkness, which, you know, you've got things like, concepts. So darkness cards will come out on the board, and the more saints that are oppressed, the more darkness enters the board at once. So you will absolutely lose the game if you ignore the saints. and just fighting combat. So you have to use
Mhm.
you have to pray. It's kind of an allegory for spiritual warfare of a Christian. So you use the full armor of God. You've got your defensive items, your armor and shield, and you've got your offensive items, your weapon and your prayer and your watchfulness, right? Like the Bible says in Ephesians 6. And the idea is that you have to beat the demons in tactical combat, and that's how you win the game. But at the same time, this darkness is entering the board that threatens you, that you can't defeat with your blade. You have to use your pray actions. You draw prayer cards when you so that's how you draw. That's how you draw a card, is you pray, and that gives you kind of some strategic advantage against darkness. And you cast down darkness through prayer. And so it's kind of this really fun little core of the game where you have to balance the tension of strategic, like tactical combat against the demons that are controlled by the game. And and you're cooperating with 1 to 4 angels, and the darkness which threatens you. So it's
Awesome.
It's pretty tough. It's a pretty tough game. Fun one.
And I think we have some pictures of the demons in the on the thumbnail. As well as the angels, and I love the art for both. They're both really excellent.
I've got
that's one of the
box
things
right here. If
right
you
there,
want to see it.
Yeah, if you want to in a bit, like you can show it closer if you want to. But yeah, it's beautiful art, and that's one of the big things for me when it comes to a board game. The art. So what I love about this is that it is very obviously a Christian themed game, but is actually enjoyable, and that's something that especially within sort of evangelical Christianity, and I'm not tagging you with that necessarily, but like
no, but it is a stigma that we have to deal with.
I'm sorry.
It totally is a stigma that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Christian games are just bad games, bad versions of other games that previously existed.
I mean, it's happened with a lot of stuff, like with Christian music. I mean, there's a lot of good Christian music, but then there's just a lot of really bad, like, following the sort of the cultural trends of the world, but not like actually improving upon it or anything, or being creative on their own. It happens with games too. I mean, like Bible trivia. I guess that's helpful, but like, so maybe not Bible trivia. It's not. Yeah,
it's more like education. It's like, let's educate you and then pretend it's fun. Let's wrap it in a thin layer of fun. But but entertainment is a driving force within culture, and if we want to change the culture, we need to actually have good entertainment. I mean, if you look at like C.S. Lewis, Narnia has untold millions of people have been blessed by it. Same thing with Lord of the Rings. Untold millions of people have been blessed by it. And it's inspired so much. I mean, even Dungeons and Dragons, there was I think he's a professing Christian. The guy who invented it. And so we have all of these things that can actually be beneficial to the culture through being entertaining, but also actually sort of pointing people to Christ, ultimately pointing people to Christ. So there's nothing more intimate. I was going to say there's nothing more intimate than getting around a table and having a meal together. I would argue that you are at the same level of intimacy with a board game in place of the meal, right? I mean, it's just nothing more intimate. You get to know people. You bring people of various backgrounds together to enjoy something. And I literally have played Deliverance with a priest, a pastor, an atheist, and a transgender person, all sitting down together. They all have very different political views, and they all had a blast. And the atheist was like, "Who wants to pray this down with me?" And the priest is like, "I'm gonna slay that demon there." And it's just like, well, that's Deliverance. That's the way it works. And it's very cool to just see how we can bridge gaps. And I think we need more of that, especially in today's culture, with which everything is just so split. We're so fragmented and alone on social media, but not really experiencing.
In my old church, and just as a sort of line about this, I think it's important for people to know. In my old church, I had a board game group that actually was pretty well attended. A lot of people. Now it's COVID, so it's a bit more difficult, but it was a great way to get people to be okay with entering into a church who otherwise would not have entered in. And it brought people into the church. Like
Yeah.
it brought them there. And so it's a good witnessing tool and evangelizing tool. I'm hoping once COVID opens back, I recently moved to California to a new church
Welcome.
as an associate priest now. And my hope is, and I've been collecting a lot of people, emails and names and all that, people who are interested. I'm hoping to do that again over here so people can get in once, but it's June 15th once everything gets opened over here. But yeah, so you saw this importance, this need for having culture and impacted by the Christian faith, which I agree with you. That's why I'm in ministry. Go ahead and if you could just sort of explain the story of like that initial inspiration and then the process and then all the way up to where we're at today.
Sure. So it'll probably involve a rant, which I will happily just go off the rails for fun. So the first thing is my wife just felt like there was a problem with games that had magic in them. Whereas I had shared earlier with you that I don't really have such a problem. I can compartmentalize those things and accept that, okay, this is the truth of the world. And then I'm just going to pretend that, for an hour that none of this has any eternal significance. And I'm okay with that. But my wife was not that way. And it always frustrated me when some of the best games out there had, were kind of like power fantasies where were a sorcerer wielding magic and that kind of thing. And the Bible says, well, sorcery is evil. And, some people have like their conscience has a problem playing things like that. And my wife happened to be one of them. And so it always frustrates me that, there are all of these great games out there. Gloomhaven is an example. We don't play Gloomhaven because it's just it's got this kind of like some dark magic in there, and my wife is just not so comfortable with that. And so I was frustrated that there was no game that was any good that had a Christian theme where I could live this. I call it a power fantasy. It's where you play a hero, like a heroic character that stands against all odds and grow in power and beat the bad guy and win the game, right? There was nothing like that I could just have. I felt like I was compromising with any Christian game because the games suck. The games are all bad. Every one of them just felt like this is not something I would want to share at game night. It's, it's not great. And then a lot of the other games were, my wife did not find palatable. And so I had to find this common ground. And I was, my wife sent me out on a run. Well, I don't like to run, but my wife made me go run. I was just frustrated and whatnot. I was thinking about this Bible verse about in Jude verse 9. So the book of Jude, to give a little bit of context, Jude is writing to a group of Jews that know, and he's using examples that they understand. He's like, hey guys, I'm going to talk to you about apostasy and this and that. And remember how, there was the flood, and remember how the angels that sinned, remember how Michael the archangel, when he contested with Satan over the body of Moses, dared not bring against him a reviling accusation, but instead said, the Lord rebuke thee. And I'm thinking, so that verse is in there because the Jews at that time would have known what he was talking about. And I do not know what he was talking. I'm like, wait a second. That is a crazy verse. Like, what did it mean when he contested or disputed over the body of Moses? Like, did they do it with words? Did they fight with blades? What did they do? Right. And I immediately thought, how would that work? And then I thought about, Frank Peretti's books, This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness, great books. There was never a situation in which a demon blade hit an angel. So if you read those books, they always duck just in time, or they block the weapon, or something like that, right? And the angels hit the demons and they vaporize into ash, right? But they, into red smoke or whatever. But the demons never hit an angel. And I wonder what would happen if the angels got hit by a blade. And so that's kind of where it started. And you look at Daniel chapter 9 talks about the prince of Persia. The prince of Persia. So Gabriel, the messenger of God, was sent by God to deliver a really important message to Daniel immediately when Daniel started praying, and was withstood by a demon with the title of the Prince of Persia, which, by the way, is where fallen princes came from, the Prince of Persia. So he was withstood by that demon for 21 days, and he would have been probably for eternity, except Michael the archangel came and helped him so that Gabriel could just break away. But Michael couldn't even defeat this demon. Gabriel had to come back and help Michael. And I thought, oh my goodness, there are demons that stand directly against the will of God and triumph for a time. This is crazy, you know? And so immediately the idea just started germinating in my head. And I'm like, I had to create a little prototype. It took me like 6 months from the time I first thought about it to get the first prototype on the table. And it was terrible. It was terrible. It was awful. But that was...
Is that the one that the Dice Tower guys played?
No. They played a version that was actually decent. Sam Healy was kind of a fan of the game. He's played a couple of times. He hasn't played the latest version. I think he would love it. But yeah, so it's... Let
me ask you, sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
Dice Tower or Shut Up and Sit Down? Or do you want to withhold?
Oh, man. I tell you what, there's a lot that I love about Dice Tower. There are some guys. So Robert Geislinger does the FOMO segment on Board Game Breakfast. Love that. I really loved when Sam Healy was there. He and I like a lot of the same stuff, you know. So that's I would have said, as long as Sam Healy's there, Dice Tower 100%.
I love both. They're both very different, very different, and I love them both for different reasons. So they're awesome. That's the diplomatic answer. But they recently did a sort of joint thing together, didn't they?
Oh, the Shut Up and Sit Down guys did with Dice Tower?
With Dice Tower. I didn't watch it. I didn't get a chance to watch it. But yeah, I'm big fans of them. Anyway, sorry. Get back to you.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I that's just kind of how the idea came to be. And I saw the potential, because if I got to throw a fireball into a demon's face and turn it into ash by the power of God, then there's no compromise. If God gave the angel the gift of the power over fire, which is biblical, you have in Revelation, it says there was an angel with power over fire that did a thing, plucked a brand from the altar and so on and so forth. Yeah, that is biblical, that an angel would have power over fire. And you bet that angel in the war that is coming and the war that had come used that power, right? And so I thought, well, there's the basis for this epic power fantasy using I'll just use very loosely the term magic, and like throwing spells and whatnot, using these epic powers of elements without actually compromising a person's Christian faith. And so I, that felt like magic was compromising, and there were a lot of times where I'd be at a convention, like I went to Dice Tower West, or Dice Tower West, but BGG Spring is the one I'm thinking about. There was this guy. I always ask in my booth. I ask people, "Hey, you like dungeon crawlers?" And that's usually how people just walk on over. Like, yeah, I like dungeon crawlers. What's this one? And there was one guy who was like, "Nope, we do not play dungeon crawlers in my house." I'm like, "Really? Why not?" He's like, "Because they are filled with magic and they are evil." And I'm just like, "Oh, dude, get over here right now," And I just was like, let me tell you about this for like 5 minutes, and then you tell me what you want to do. That guy, you better believe that guy sat right down and was like, "Can I buy this right now? Can I put this prototype into my backpack?" And I just feel like, and I'm a marketer. That's my profession, and it's so. I just see so much potential for this game to be a big hit, because there are I just feel like there are a lot of people that want something like this that don't have any alternative. So I hear my baby. She just woke up.
Oh, that's fine. So you've been doing this. How long has it been sort of from official start to where we're almost at the finish now? Like, how long has that been? How many years?
It has been 5 years. I remember starting June 1st, 2015 is when I started developing this game. So
wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're getting close to the Kickstarter, which is June, right? June something.
June 8th. Yep, June 8th.
June
We
8th.
go live.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we have. Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say I've backed I think half a dozen at least Kickstarter things, almost all of them board games, and GameFound. I've done both Kickstarter and GameFound.
Yep.
And so this is definitely one I'm going to be backing, and I tend to back like full. If it's awesome. For me, it's go full or go home.
Yep.
And it's not because it's Christian or whatever. I played it, and I've played Christian board games before, and some back and forth. This one is legitimately good. I genuinely like it, and I don't go out of my way to try to play dungeon crawlers. Like I've got Gloomhaven, and I haven't played it my copy yet. I mean, it's fun, but like for me, it's always going to be much more of the sort of deep strategy, political stuff. Yeah. But this one is like legitimately good. It's one that I'm definitely going to be picking up for to play with friends and all that sort of stuff. So I really highly recommend it. And this is not a paid advertisement, by the way. I'm actually enthusiastic about it.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. One of the things about the whole idea behind, so it being a Christian thing is actually almost an obstacle that I have to overcome because of the stigma that comes with it, right? And so a lot of the time it's just people have to experience it for themselves, to see that, wow, this is a really good thing that has actually innovative mechanics. I mean, going back to C.S. Lewis, I always think of this quote from him. He used to be an atheist, but he was a linguist, right? No, that's J.R. Tolkien. What was he? He was like I want to say a literature scholar, right? Yeah. So he would get, people criticizing the Bible all the time. And, and he, when he became a Christian, he said, look, I don't respect what you have to say unless you have experience criticizing and I guess in other types of literature. Yeah. If that's all you have experience in, you are not well educated enough for me to respect your opinion. And in the same way, Christians oftentimes that create games are like, I just want to create Magic, but Christian. I just want to create Catan, but Christian. I just want to create whatever, but Christian. And you run into this conundrum of, well, you made a thing that's not as good as the original. So, and for me, I think that one of the biggest problems that people have is they only have experience with that thing. I played Twilight Imperium. I spent 7 hours playing Twilight Imperium. I've spent, many times playing Scythe, one of my favorite games. I'm sure you probably enjoy that one. But
I've not played Scythe yet, but I want to. Yeah, it's one really good. It's definitely on my list. Yeah.
If you like Twilight Imperium, you'll love Scythe. Right. It's awesome. It's kind of like Twilight Imperium Light. It's kind of how I look at it. But Lord of the Rings, Journeys of Middle-earth, wherever the camera has been weird. Lord of the Rings, Journeys of Middle-earth, one of my favorite games. I put, countless hours into all of these games and many, many more. And so I have a lot of experience. I've played hundreds of games, and I know what makes a really good game because I've played them. And, I think that most Christian game designers make a game after having experience playing a dozen games, maybe. Most of them being roll and move, most of them being, trivia games. They don't have an understanding of game mechanics. They think roll the dice and you move and see what happens. You collected a sin card, whatever. It's like you don't roll a dice and get into heaven. You know what I mean? Like,
all right, two things. First one's kind of a throwaway thing, but do you remember the Redemption card game series?
I do. Yes.
I never played it, but I had a few cards. Is that sort of what?
That's Magic.
Is that Christian? Sort of a Magic light, a Magic with Christian kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the results are just, Magic has created, 100,000 different cards, and Redemption has created 3,000. Magic sells hundreds of millions of dollars a month, and Redemption sells, hundreds of dollars a month. It's just.
Is it still around?
Yeah, believe it or not, it actually even has like their World Championships is in Tennessee every year. They still do it.
Oh, what part of Tennessee?
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure.
Oh,
So
okay.
just
I'm from Tennessee. Okay.
Okay. I didn't even think Tennessee existed. I never met anyone from there until everyone started moving from California to Tennessee.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I know plenty who moved to Tennessee or Florida or Texas. Yeah. But that's another thing for another time.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So there's that. And then that's such an important thing, because what happens so often is, I think it comes from good intention. It's like, I want to get the gospel out. I want people to come to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get these things that sort of like preach the gospel, but in a fun way. Mm-hmm. But I think they put the cart before the horse. I think it's there. And I think oftentimes it might be a little bit deceptive too, because it's this sort of like, let me give the gospel, but like put nice, pretty packaging around it. Yeah.
Yep. If you want to beat the game, you have to repent.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And like, the problem I have with that is that it is trying to sell the gospel.
Yep.
Being like, hey, here's some fun things. It's like trying to be that cool grandma or that cool aunt or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. You need to do, if you want a good story, you need to have a good story. And what should happen is your where it almost flows naturally, I would think. Like, maybe you have to have some intention behind it, or conscious intention, but like where you're creating this thing and your life is already filled with Christ so much that like the Christianity just sort of oozes into the board game, or oozes into the book, or oozes into the whatever it is. Rather than a very contrived, like, okay, you're trying to preach to me kind of thing, you know?
Right. I think that a lot of Christian game designers fail at the onset. It's almost like before you even, as a runner running around a track, it's like you fall even before the starting blocks, and you fail to even start the race because you have the wrong target market. And what I mean by that, translating it into a product that needs to be sold, is that you start with a premise that is wrong, incorrect, and you end up with a game that nobody wants to buy. It's like, all right, oh, there's my wonderful wife. Ooh, the Stormlight archive right there. It's in the shrink. It's on my shelf of shame until we actually play it. Yeah. Oh. So, which hopefully we'll bust it out this weekend. So, yes. So anyway, the idea is that I want to make a game that causes people to repent and brings more people into the kingdom of heaven. That's a great noble premise. Oh, the baby. So the idea is I'm going to make a game that leads people to the foot of the cross. And so Christians that are already saved, let's say Christians that know they're saved, that is spiritual milk to those Christians, and they're ready to do the next thing. It's like, all right, I've been there and I want to, that's not the game for me. Clearly you're looking to save people. I'm already saved, so I'm not the right target market for you. Then you have the non-Christian, let's say the atheist, that is like, I don't want to play a game like that. I want to, delve in and play Dark Souls and or whatever it is. I want to play any game that doesn't, because that's like real life to me. I don't want to deal with real life. I don't want to hear it again from my uncle about why I should go to church and that kind of thing. I just want to stay as far away from any game that has a Bible verse as I can. And so you die on the starting blocks. You print 1,000 copies of a thing that nobody wants. And the only person who does is your mom. She'll buy a copy. She'll buy 10 copies.
Your mom will always buy a copy. Yeah.
And it's, but it's just like for pity's sake, not because she actually intends to ever play it, as, much as I love my mom and I know she'll support me. She'll drop like $1,000 on my Kickstarter because she just loves me. She will never play Deliverance unless she plays with me. Right. And that's just the way it is. She doesn't play board games and she loves her son. The game needs to be accepted by the market. And if it wants to have legs, if I want to do a second, third, fourth print run, if I want to make expansions, if I want to take Frank Peretti's intellectual property and make This Present Darkness the game, that has to have some sales, right? If Barnes and Noble is going to take this thing and buy 15,000 copies for their stores or whatever, it's got to be something that like people actually want to play, And so my goal is to create something awesome that simply starts with, okay, everybody, magic circle time, atheists and Christians, Jesus died and rose again, and you, as an angel, you were not allowed to interfere, and you didn't understand why. It seemed like Satan was winning, and then boom, all of a sudden he's chained to the earth, and you realize, oh my goodness, God was so clever, he just won. 2,000 years later, you have to slay all those demons that put Christ on that cross. It's like, find and slay them. And that's just the way the story works. It's like, people will say all the time to me that are non-Christians, like, yeah, it's kind of like Greek mythology to me, like I don't accept this as true, but I mean, you don't have to have some religious, conversation with yourself before you decide to play Hercules or not, a game with Hercules and this and that. It's like, well, yeah, it's fake, but it's fun, hurl lightning bolts as Zeus. Non-Christians look at Deliverance and say, yeah, there is no God, Andrew, but this game is awesome. And then Christians are like, well, hey, you've got all the lore is theologically sound. And this is just a great story. And I'm not having to worry about like trying to get people Legend of Zebulun or Super Mario Brothers. That's hilarious. Yeah.
I had to share that.
Yeah. That is awesome. So yeah, that's just kind of the way that I'm that's the way I look at Deliverance. It's one of those things that its premise is, we're not going to try to save people necessarily. We're going to start with the premise that, Christ died, buried, resurrected, and there's this epic story now, and the purpose is to tell a story. And what I find is that it's a tool that people can use for whatever intention they have. Like they can use it for fun. It's like the fun box. It's the tool that they can use to minister. And, if you want to use it for ministry, you can use it for ministry because it has all those Easter eggs. It is every single corner of Deliverance has been meticulously thought through. Every single bit of the art, every name that is, like the Bible says, every jot and tittle. I kid you not, everything literally has a purpose for being there, or a purpose for why it's not included. And it was extremely hard. I've been told I'm going to hell at least half a dozen times at various stages for things. And, people just have an extremely, they're very opinionated. As soon as you're like, oh, this is a Christian thing, they're like, whoa, wait a second. Let's see if it has any leaven in it. If it has a single bit of leaven, I'm back to Diablo in a second, just like.
Nope. Yeah.
Christians.
One of the things I really do like, by the way, is that as a big fan of like the complicated games, I can't find too many people who are like, oh, let me, sit down, take 2 hours to learn how to play Twilight Imperium so I could play it for 7 hours. It's a very niche sort of group there. But this one is actually pretty easy. I didn't have to read the manual beforehand. You literally just were like, let's do it. We played it on Tabletop Simulator. And you showed me how to play it while we were playing it. It's pretty easy to learn. And I really like that. It's a game that I could, in one sitting, be like, okay, let me unbox it. I'll teach you how to play it while we're playing it, and we'll all have a fun time. I really like that.
Yeah, one of the things about Deliverance that I really loved was I wanted, going back to Magic the Gathering, you have the cards tell you how to play them, as long as you understand the basic rules. The rule book for Magic is like as thick as the Bible. It's just it's like 260 pages actually, which is not as thick as the Bible, but that is pretty thick for a rule book. I mean, I would not read 260 pages to play a game, right? And except for Warhammer, which I did. But but the idea is that you can actually just sit down and kind of figure it out. Like your friend is like you learn to play a card game because a friend taught you how to play the card game. You didn't learn from the rule book, right? And so in the same way, Deliverance, you can sit down, and if you haven't played in a while, there's just a simple quick reference card that has like the round sequence and do this, then do this, then do this, and then do it again, and the idea is, as long as one person has played, the rules for each individual thing are actually written out right in front of you. So the rules for your individual character, the moves that you have, are written on your character card. Like those are the things that you can do right in front of you. And you're not having to go like, okay, which are my actions? Can I move? Can I attack? Can I pray? Can I whatever? It's like they're right in front of you. and that really helps. So the rule book is more, if there's like an issue and you needed like a clarification, like can I heal before I get damaged, or can I do this before that, or whatever. But it's nice because for the most part, as long as one person is kind of familiar, you can retrain yourself. If you have, let's say it's been a month or two since you've played, you can actually just sit down, look at that quick reference card, and like grind through the first round, and then you immediately get it again. It just, I've never had anybody take longer than one round to actually like figure out how
remember how it goes. Yeah. Awesome. I have a question. Obviously this depends on how successful it is and all that sort of stuff, and I really hope it is successful. I actually think it will be, honestly. But like, how far ahead do you think about with like expansions and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I originally, I got this advice from a guy at my local game store. He said to me, you should build this game with all of your expansions in mind, build tons and tons of content, and have like 2 expansions ready to go when the game launches. And he was speaking from the perspective of a game store owner, that when when the game store owner sells Catan, then the person comes back, they automatically know they can sell them the 5 to 6 player expansion. They can sell them the Cities and Knights expansion. They can do all of that, and they can kind of hook them in. And so when Deliverance comes out and there are a couple of expansions, you can sell them like 2 things at the same time. And, it's really good for game store owners. So
are you doing expansions?
Well, I intend. The answer is yes, but I intended to do expansions. Instead, I'm doing a deluxe edition and throwing it all in there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's one beefcake game that, depending on what version you get, there is a retail edition for $59, but the beefcake version is $89, and it's got like 9 angels instead of 5. It's got just a ton of thick, awesome content. And so it's so I originally designed it. I did design it with expansions in mind. Very importantly, I worked so hard on that system, the system of Deliverance, to make sure that no matter what we introduced, like future content, it would work within the system. So the way the demons interact, the way the angels interact, we can develop, dozens and dozens of angelic heroes and dozens of demons that behave very differently from each other, because the way the Deliverance system works, it's incredible. Like the ability for that system to adapt is it's divinely inspired. I promise you that I am not that smart.
Nice. So yeah, let's go over a few questions if that's all right now.
Yeah. Let's
see. From I Maxed Out HD, how do you feel your previous experience as a coach has impacted how you designed Deliverance?
So as a professional coaching Hearthstone and that kind of thing, so in these types of games where you're playing against someone else, I kind of take the perspective of in Hearthstone, it's you against one other person, or any other collectible card game, it's you against one other person typically. And you need to find some broken combination that you can abuse to just whip that person. Yeah. Right. And so a lot of the time in a game like Hearthstone, you're looking for that magic combination that will really like give you a major advantage. It's like your win condition. And in the same way, Deliverance, I built again, going back to the system of Deliverance, I built that system to challenge you to abuse it. It is a difficult game, and you need so there are multiple levels of difficulty. So if you just want to like sit down and enjoy it, like you and I, we played, I believe we played without demon talents. Do you remember demon talents at all?
I don't think they were in that. Yeah.
Okay. So demons can actually grow in power and get harder. So you can have like an extremely hard, ridiculously hard game for veterans that will challenge even the most veteran of board gamers. Or you can have a game that, maybe a first time player, maybe even mom is like, I want to play this game with you. And you can have a game that will feel challenging, but that you can, make it through. You can kind of control like who wins and all that. So the idea is that the Deliverance game challenges you to find something to abuse in order to beat it. It allows for the player to interpret rules in certain ways to benefit themselves, and it challenges you to find ways to kind of, at the higher echelons of difficulty, you really need to be extremely efficient with your actions, and you need to like be really good. But at the low level, you get to, I mean, I can tell you without a doubt, I could beat Deliverance on its lowest difficulty setting 100% of the time without ever losing. And that's because there's enough player agency that you have control over your win, over whether you win or lose. The curveballs that will be thrown at you, you can totally lose this lowest difficulty setting, but the curveballs that are thrown at you, you can kind of pre-plan for. It's like, well, if we get beat up, I have this prayer card that heals you for 7. So I'm just going to hold that just in case. And, you know, if somebody runs too far forward and all the demons swarm that person, it's like, all right, I got you. I have all these answers, you know, and I'm the one that's, you know, going to heal now. You're the one that damages. I will heal you. I choose my role to be support so that we can win. Right. And it's totally possible to carry noobs in Deliverance, but at the higher difficulty levels, everybody needs to be more efficient and needs to really know what they're doing, and you know, a little bit of luck, you know, in there. You know, you better hope your dice rolls go well.
Let me say about mine, ours that we did. So we just barely won. I think I had to sacrifice myself, or you did, one of us did. And we just got him at the very end. What demon did we fight? I'm trying to remember.
I believe we fought the Prince of Greece, Antiochus. It's either the Euphrates frogs with 3 frogs that we fought, or it was the guy that creates shadow tokens everywhere and that kind of thing.
I think it might have been the shadow tokens guy, because every turn you got a shadow token under you, or I did.
That's the guy. Yeah.
And it was tough. It was very challenging. And I consider myself a pretty competent board game player, although maybe my fellow board gamers who've played with me a lot might say otherwise. But,
Are you that guy with analysis paralysis that's playing Twilight Imperium? Take 30 minutes for your turn. Are you that guy?
No, I'm actually pretty devious. I tend to play the whole table pretty well.
Funny.
That's awesome. At least for a beginner. I'm still a beginner when it comes to Twilight Imperium. But I think I catch on pretty well. Anyway, it's able to go for beginners who are just learning about board games in general, all the way to like pretty competitive levels and everything. And I really appreciate the depth of that, because this is a board game I can bring to my family, who, with the exception of my brother, don't really play board games much. And we can have a fun time. My mom might not like it because she doesn't like demons. But other than that, you know, the rest of my family, we can play it.
You know, and it's interesting because there are people out there, I think, like, on a marketing note, there are people out there, that Christians, that just don't feel comfortable with demons. And in this case, like, no matter what, I mean, obviously those people probably aren't going to be fans of they're not going to buy Deliverance. They're going to feel like they're bringing Jumanji into their house or whatever with Deliverance.
Or a Ouija board.
Exactly. Right. And I'm pretty sure my funeral will get protested because of this game. If it does really well, I'll probably have my funeral protested. So,
awesome.
So it's just one of those things that the demons are, they're more like concepts that we deal with as a Christian fighting spiritual warfare. And one of the things with this game is that what it tries to do, if there is a message in it, it's to shed light that demons are real, just because you don't want to acknowledge that that demons are real, or that demons are nearby. I mean, I told my pastor the other day, it's probably a week ago, we met up for coffee and we talked actually about Deliverance and other things too. And I told him, like, if Satan prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone whom he would devour. And then in Job, it says that, God's like, have you considered my servant Job? What you been up to, Satan? And Satan's like, I've been walking back and forth in the earth. And if you think that he hasn't gone right through your city and walked into your church and sat down in an empty seat, I think you're crazy. You know, if you are a Christian that is teaching the truth and this and that, you better believe that Satan or one of his high ups has personally observed you, and that there are demons that are just can't wait to oppress you, and that have oppressed you, and you maybe sometimes you might not acknowledge that, but demons are real, right?
Yeah, I can understand an argument about like, oh, you play as a demon, therefore it's a bad game. Like, right. I don't quite buy that, but okay, whatever. Like, we can say that. Okay, what I've never understood, even as a child, and I've had family members sort of like be like this, is this idea that like games where the demons are obviously the bad guys and you are trying to stop the demons from doing bad things, like those are bad because there are. It's like.
Yeah,
I guess is every story that has a bad guy in it a bad one, because it's never made sense to me, that whole thing.
That's kind of, you know, in some ways that's where I think some of the criticism that Dungeons and Dragons received was legitimate. Others is based upon a lack of understanding. So, you know, you'll have some people that say, you know, it's in my opinion, it's not good to swear fealty to a god in D&D. I just don't like that idea, right? But I'll play as long as I don't have to do that. Like, I'm going to be, you know, an atheist in my D&D setting, or I'm going to swear to Jesus or whatever, you know. But it's just like one of those things that, some people can get over that. But I understand like that it's, you know, they kind of set themselves up for some theological blunders if you wanted to make it palatable to Christians. There's actually a game right now on Kickstarter, which is called Angel Fury. It's
I've heard about it.
Yeah. So it's actually by the guys that did Terraforming Mars. And one of the biggest problems that people have with it, in fact, they advertised in my Deliverance group. I have a Deliverance Game Insiders Facebook group with about 1,900 people in it. And they advertised, and it was a large thread. And a lot of my fans said, you can play as the demons. I'm not cool with that. I don't want to bring it into my house. It's like, that's it. But they're going to buy this game specifically. Well, it's not a deterrent to them because the demons are controlled by the game. And a lot of the time I'll get questions asked from all sides. Can you play the demons? And the answer is no. The demons are played by the game, and they do have some agency. You know, you get to have some control, but it's just simply you're like the hand that guides them. And, you know, because the game is not possessed. The demons are not going to move themselves. You know, you have to do the moving, but the game determines what the demons do. And it is pretty clever. The demons can interact to do some really cool things, and they fight against you in a very unified way, which is fun. But yeah, it's just that would be a real deterrent. And that's one of the examples of the theological quandaries that I had to work through in order to gamify something that is Christian. You know, if we're legitimately using the Christian lore, then demons are good. Or I'm sorry, that is not true. Angels are good. Demons are bad. Satan's the worst. That's the facts. And we have to build something that is where that's true. You know, good has to be good. Evil has to be evil. And it has to feel like that as you're playing. So
I was going to say some fundamentalists who saw that is going to be like Freudian slip, except
I know
they don't like Freud anyway. But anyway, I mean, I don't like Freud either. But so this one is going to be a bit of a troll. Theology Pit is run by a guy named Samson. I know
you can't troll me harder than I am. I'm a pro gamer. I am used to people telling me the worst of the worst, and I have a lot of
your mom jokes and all that. Yeah.
I'm down.
All right. He's a good guy, but he's given a bunch of sort of trolly questions, but I think this one's important.
I'll just troll him back a little bit.
This one's a pretty, I think this is reaches to an important point. How many Rapture cards do you get? Is there a get out of tribulation free card? Can the Tim LaHaye spinner be used right away, or do you have to wait?
That's awesome. So first of all, I love this question. I'll answer it really quick. You get no Rapture cards because Rapture cards are stupid. Get out of tribulation free card. You're too late. There's no such thing. If you got your coronavirus vaccine, that is the mark of the beast, and you are doomed. No, just kidding. But we're trolling now. The Tim LaHaye spinner. Actually, believe it or not, Kirk Cameron lives close enough to me that I think I could get him to play Deliverance with me. And
You
my
should
goal,
take that. Oh yeah,
dude, we are totally gonna troll. If we get to play, we're gonna like keep the camera on and then pause it real quick, and then we're gonna leave and then play it real quick, and just it's gonna be an empty room when there's the final video. It's gonna be like we got raptured. We'll leave our shoes, you know.
Yes.
So,
But the reason I pointed out this question specifically is that it gets to I think a really important question about theology. So when it comes to theology, you don't have to show your hand on where you are theologically. I mean, my collar shows me. Yeah, I'm as an Anglican and barely Protestant. I consider myself both Catholic and Protestant. Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for the reformers, but I also have a lot of respect for the historic tradition and everything. Mm-hmm. So yeah, how if you want to answer like sort of what's your theological perspective, and then from there, if you want to talk about how much theology you put in, and like, do you go sort of a mere Christianity or do you go deeper? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I grew up Lutheran, so it's like maybe like a half step further or something. I don't even know if it's further. It's like maybe like step to the side, similar.
Yeah, Anglicans and Lutherans are the closest when it comes to Protestantism. Yeah, they're close to each other. Yeah.
So I grew up Lutheran, and then I went to a church that was they call themselves evangelical free, is what their denomination was. So I grew up with electric guitars and drums and whatnot in the college, high school, college group, and so on and so forth. And but the truth is that I read the Bible every day. I read at least 1 to 4 chapters every day. And that I think is my secret for, I'm a super hardcore gamer, and I do my best to understand what the Bible says. And I do interpret the Bible literally as everywhere that I can. So that's kind of my theological background. So it's very important that it feels like that it feels theologically sound as much as it can, except in certain areas that I divert from theology purposefully. Yeah. A couple of one of the examples would be female angels. Male, people always argue about, angels when it comes to deliverance. They're like, oh, well, angels are all genderless, or, they say things like this. And that is, the Bible does not say that the angels are genderless, but they're reading something into, well, we're not married nor given in marriage in heaven. But does that mean we're genderless? It means like we might not have a wedding ring on. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. And so, they'll come up with all of these things. But so for my angels, I recognize they are not biblically accurate. If they were, you would fall down in fear and worship them. And that's a problem, right? I mean, that's what almost everybody did except for Mary, right? She, everybody like fell down in fear as though dead. And they have eyeballs covered all over there, multiple types of angels, some with 6 wings, some with 4 wings, some with heads, like 4 heads. And they're all like monstrous creatures that are terrifying. And there's no description of an angel with 2 wings. The angels that have 0 wings, 4 wings, or 6 wings. They are they're more like Tyrael from Diablo. They're more like godlike creatures that, are just normal dudes that look terrifying. And so what I decided to do was use the angels as an allegory for people. So they're really good looking people with wings of all different cultures, And so you've got men and women, because I want people that play these characters to say, oh, that looks like me. I want to take that one. So, so there's an area that we divert from what would be theologically correct on purpose. We take creative license because it's a fantasy. In the end, it's a fantasy, right? So
I agree, and I appreciate that. So I'm not so rigid, obviously. I mean, if I'm willing to play games where you can play as demons, I guess I'm not rigid at all. Period. Maybe I'm too loose, but no. I think the idea of sort of almost like the regulative principle converted into board games, or like if it's not explicitly encrypted, you're not allowed to do it. Yep. I think that is part of the problem with sort of entertainment within Christian entertainment. Yep. I think that we can allow for some sort of some ingenuity and all that sort of stuff, as long as it doesn't have I'd say important theological sort of ramifications. That would be the concern. So like if you're having Jesus as like created
with a
by
machine
God
gun and
Oh well, yeah. I mean, if you want to have like Republican Jesus being,
Yeah.
I might want to play that game. It might be interesting,
Yeah.
but not for the like almost sort of out of the irony of it, I guess, or not irony, but like out of
I know. I'd
the
play it once,
weirdness
but I
of it.
wouldn't share it with my mom.
Yeah. No, but no, I think that having some ingenuity and creativity in it, I think works well. I mean that like it, the the uh, the imagination. If you look at things like Lord of the Rings or at Chronicles of Narnia or things like that, or like the Fairy Queen or other things like the Sir Gawain the Green Knight and all that. Like there's a lot of imagination in it, and it's not afraid to it's constantly pointing back to scripture, but it's not afraid to add a little bit to stuff to it. I think that's fine,
Yeah.
as long as it's not hurting our theology.
Right.
Let's go ahead. Oh, sorry, good.
I was just going to say, C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity, I believe it was, talked about the analogy between the Father and the Son, right? Jesus is not God's legitimate son, depending on, what I mean is, depending on your brand of theology, Mormons believe that Jesus is actually like the first spirit child of God, the Father who had relations with God, with his wife or whatever, right? And made a baby that was Jesus, and that was the first Adam. But we believe that Jesus is the Son of God who has been eternal, is co-equal with God, but we have God the Father, right? And God the Father, Jehovah's Witnesses say God the Father is the only God to be worshipped. Jesus is God, but not a God to be worshipped. And I believe in the Trinitarian doctrine of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So C.S. Lewis talked about how you've got like the father and son relationship. There are holes in that analogy that God decided to use. There are actually holes in that analogy because a father is superior to the son, and yet God the Father and God the Son are co-equal, right?
Amen.
And so on and so forth.
No eternal subordination, by the way. No eternal subordination. Sorry, I didn't mention that.
So you've got this analogy that is not perfect, yet it is perfect because it's the best analogy that we have to understand this relationship that is infinitely deeper than our minds can fathom. It's the best way, just like Jesus spoke in parables. It was evidently, because it's written in scripture all over the place, it was the best way for God the Father to, and God the Son to help us understand what this relationship was like. And just in the same way, there are holes in Deliverance. You could totally poke holes in it. But the analogies, the allegory is strong, right? The theological soundness of the allegory is still strong.
Amen. Agree. All right, Benjamin Levy, really cool to hear the verses that inspired the core idea of the game. Also, This Present Darkness is a great inspiration. So let me say this real quick. I actually have never read Piercing the Darkness or This Present Darkness. I think it's actually the other way. It's the other way around. I think This Present Darkness is the first one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I actually had the book, and my dad read them growing up. I actually had his Cooper Kids Adventure series, those books as a kid. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
No.
But it's basically sort of like an Indiana Jones type thing, but it's a father with two kids. And they go on all these sort of different adventures. It was actually, I haven't read it since I was a child, so it might not be as good as it, like I remember it, but like I loved it as a kid.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, if you want to comment on his comment here.
Yeah, one of the other things about this game, you talk about the verses that inspire the core idea of the game, and I feel like, in the game we have these prayer cards. And the prayer cards have Bible verses on them. I call them highly thematic flavor text. It's totally optional. It's on the back of the card. Every prayer card has a unique verse, and the verses all relate to what the actual game effect is on the front. So a clever player in a moment of need might look at a verse and say, does this look defensive or offensive? I need one or the other, right? And so the verses on the prayer cards were actually kind of something that came from a lot of them came from like my personal life, situations that I went through while developing the game or while going through life. And, I must have created, 30 out of the 80 cards just based on, one or two situations that were really difficult, where I had to have patience in trials, and I had to, declare the blood of Jesus over my family and other things like that. And, just, walking in faith and other named cards that are actually names of prayer cards. Those were inspired by situations that I've walked through in life. Also darkness cards. There are some very heavy ideas behind the darkness. Again, we're talking about the evils of the human realm. So suicidal thoughts, a nation divided, sexual morality, marital unfaithfulness. These are cards that are like demonic strongholds that you cast down through prayer. Right. And so it's really just it's one of the problems with Christian games is typically the theme is like pasted on to some other mechanics that they could be a zombie theme or Christian theme, it's just like whatever. But in this game, they're so intertwined. And I feel like the verses and the inspiration forces the game to be so interlocked and whatnot that it just couldn't possibly be any other theme. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent.
Awesome. No, I love it. No. Benjamin's got another one. A big part of why I think Deliverance is going to be successful is that Andrew has tons of experience playing a variety of games. And it shows how Deliverance is designed. No, I think, you can tell there's a lot of design thought put into it. And I agree. Plus, the balance of true theology and fantasy elements will be a great bridge for all players to enjoy it, no matter their interest. I agree. I can see this as a game I play with my atheist friends, my liberal friends, all that sort of stuff, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
My non-Christian friends of any sort. I think it's something that just about everyone will enjoy. Let's see. We got a few more trolling comments from Theology Pit, but
let's do it.
It's all good. Oh, I do need to put this one up. Barely Protestant tried to tempt people in seminary away from their studies to play games. That is true. Actually, yeah. So I know Samson, Theology Pit, from seminary. He and I went to the same seminary together. He's a weird Presbyterian, so we let him in even though he's a Presbyterian. We forgave him for that part. But anyway, I would play. We had a board game night, and it was I think every Wednesday night, and we would play it. And I had this. I loved it, but quite a few of the seminary students were like, "No, I need to study," and maybe I should have studied more. But I mean, I got to play board games, right? I love it. But let's see. So 1 second. All right. I think that's all the questions we have right now. Again, it is called Deliverance. I have in the show notes the website, and I might remember to put the Facebook group. If I don't, there is a Facebook group as well that you can join. There's also a Facebook page. I don't know if you have anything on other social media like Instagram or something.
The main thing is the website and the Facebook group. What you want is, so we also have a Discord, which if you want to actually play Deliverance, you can right now on Tabletop Simulator. Tabletop Simulator is like $20 on the Steam store. But what you want to do if you want just any more information on this game, go to deliverancethegame.com or find the Facebook group and get your email on the list. If you enter your email, you'll get like an automatic welcome message to your inbox that will give you links to all the things. You can read the rule book, you can join the Discord channel or the Discord server, you can join the Facebook group, all those things. So go to deliverancethegame.com and you'll get all those things. And now we're going to Kickstarter T-minus, like 29 days or 28 days. And so you
said June 8th, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, excited. Yep, but less than a month away. So a few things. I promise I'm going to be supporting it as much as I can. I'm going to be going the full amount.
Yep.
I encourage everyone, honestly, to try it out and judge for themselves. Contact Andrew or just contact me if you're interested. I'll be able to hook you up with Andrew and all that and get it. Yeah, again, Tabletop Simulator, it's a thing on Steam where you can play a bunch of board games. And the board games, once you buy Tabletop Simulator, are free. They just load them up, but like that's the only way we can actually sort of do this right now. I say if you like board games, it's well worth it. They've got like a limitless number of board game emulators that you can play online with friends. That's how I'm playing Twilight Imperium right now. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, definitely get that Tabletop Simulator, even if you're not going to try out this. But yeah, I highly encourage you to try it out. To try out Deliverance. Contact me. Contact Andrew. Let me see. There was one more thing. Oh, yeah. So I would love to actually, if you're fine with this, sometime before the stream or before the opening, see if we could do sort of a either live or at least recorded playthrough.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Whether it's just us two or if you want to get two more people in or something like that, we can try to do that. And what else? What else? Oh, I would love to be, and this is kind of almost a joke, but not really. I'd love to be able to help out with any further expansions, especially on the theological end. I have ideas.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things that we have, I just did in my Discord server, you can find the theory crafting channel, and I added blank angel and fallen prince templates. So there are people that want to theory craft their own angels and put together, you know, their own boss fights and that kind of thing. I am totally legitimately going to look at that stuff for expansions. You know, there are some angels that have more lore than others. You know, you've got Uriel, which is traditionally associated with that fire, you know, fire and whatnot. You know, you've got the angel of death, which traditionally is named Azrael in some various lore bases, and then Michael and Gabriel, and then you've got Raphael from the apocryphal writings, and those characters are really interesting. But we have a lot of others that are not named and that we made up names for, and you know, you've got like, you know, this guy Sardius the Stonebender, who is like basically is a volcano angel, and also other stuff. So we're gonna absolutely we'll take creative license based on what the Bible says, that angels have power over fire. And there's an angel of the, you know, waters in Revelation. There's an angel that has, you know, I mean, all sorts of different, you know, there are at least 10 great examples of angels and what powers they have, and what it is that they do. Angels kill a lot of people. They can.
They do.
It's pretty gnarly.
They can kick butt.
Yeah. So
yeah, thank you again, Andrew. I've really enjoyed this talk. It's been awesome, and I really look forward to the opening of the what's the word? What's the phrase I should use for it? The Kickstarter premiere beginning or whatever. Once again, look up online on the show notes. Find his website. You can go on Facebook, find Deliverance board game, all that sort of stuff. Thanks for coming, and we need to play a game again, but also some others too. I'd love to play like TI with you or something like that as well.
Yeah, I love TI. I think that's one of my favorite games. It's I watched Babylon 5. Have you ever seen Babylon 5?
That is one of the sci-fi shows I've actually not seen yet.
Okay, so that's basically Twilight Imperium, the show. It's like you've got like different alien factions that are fighting and trying to like, you know, jockey for political control, and that you're basically playing Twilight Imperium. You're playing Babylon 5. So it's like they weren't wealthy enough to get the IP for Babylon 5, so they called it Twilight Imperium. But yeah, it's really good. Highly recommend that. Would love to play games. Definitely would love people to check out the Kickstarter campaign when it goes live. I'll say one more thing about that is that a lot of Christian things, I feel like there are a lot of people on board with this one. We have over 3,000, it's like almost 3,300 people on our email list that are very engaged. We've got almost 2,000, it's like 1,930 people in a Facebook group that are very engaged. We've got a lot of momentum. We've got a lot of people that are excited. My goal is to fund on the first day. And then I already have every stretch goal we're going to do. Everything is already planned out. The game will basically, hopefully, be complete. And my plan is to just blow up. I want to explode. But if it doesn't happen, if we fund a more humble amount, I think we'll be working on expansions immediately as soon as my artist is finished with the 9th angel, which he is about done. We're going to start working on angel number 10, which will be for the first expansion. So that's the plan.
I'm excited about that. Awesome. All right. Once again, thank you, Andrew, for coming on, and thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you all have a good day. God bless.
Yeah. Cheers.